Welcome to From the Deep. I am Mike the Finder.
And I am Book of Brett.
And today we have got a different video planned for you. And because it's sort of a different video, we are also recording this in a different way. So,
and it's going swimmingly.
Yeah, there's some learning curve to it so far. If you notice anything weird, that's what's happening today. Now, usually on this channel, we usually review stuff and or recently have been doing other weird stuff. And this is going to be another video that we're just kind of seeing what happens here.
Always a good way of going about things.
Yeah, this is going to be more of a discussion topic type video, I think. Today we are going to be talking about physical media and its slow, painful death. That's kind of what we're here to discuss, if physical media is dying or not. And the reason this video came up in my head to do this is because I had made a video, I think it's been about a year now. So about a year ago, I made this video, Dear Blu-ray and DVD Collectors. And in that video, I had kind of mentioned that I thought Blu-rays and physical media and movies especially are dying. And it wasn't the point of that video so much as it was just kind of me thinking out loud and a side note on the video of please stop blindly supporting small labels that are continuing to cut on quality. That's what that video was initially about. And
yeah, wasn't it about, there was like a certain movie you watched where like you'd spent a great deal of money on the movie and it ended up being like basically outdated media.
Well, it was the Friday the 13th box set from Scream Factory.
That's right. Yeah.
I also made a review video about that. Both these videos are on my channel. I will link those down in the description as well if you want to go check those out. But those two videos, yeah, I'm glad you brought that one up because that is what led to that video. Scream Factory really screwed up with the Friday the 13th box set, and I'll be the first to admit that it is a great box set, even though they did screw it up and they had some problems. They made it right.
Aesthetically, it's a great box set.
Right. Well, also, there were some problems with some of the discs. They were very small problems, though. But nevertheless, Scream Factory, they did replace those discs. So they did end up making everything right. But that is the thing that got me thinking about we need to stop as a community, as a horror community, Blu-ray community, collecting community, whatever you want to call it. We need to stop blindly supporting these small indie labels that are getting more and more expensive and becoming less and less quality. So That was kind of where that came from. But in that video, I mentioned how I thought Blu-rays are dying.
Well, we also brought this up on our review of the Tender Bar, too. This is something that came up with that.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And that was really what I think cemented the idea for both of us to like, we need to make this a full video.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was the thing with the Tender Bar where, you know, you've got a great movie that's basically got a stranglehold on it because of the slow, as you put it, the slow, painful decline of physical media. And which is a real shame, and I think it became more apparent though with the Tender Bar because so often you've got movies that are only released on streaming, and it doesn't really matter if the audience the audience is gonna find it regardless. Whereas with the Tender Bar, you had this great movie that putting it out on physical media is actually going to make it more accessible to people and allow more people to see it, especially on something like Amazon Prime, where, yeah, a lot of people have Amazon Prime, but a lot of people don't go to Amazon Prime for streaming for movies.
Yeah, no kidding.
Especially when you've got, and we'll touch on this later, I don't want to jump ahead too much, but especially when you're paying for so many streaming services already, people aren't going to Amazon Prime for that. But you're not saving what you used to with Amazon Prime anymore. So I know a lot of people that have gotten rid of their Amazon Prime subscriptions, which therefore means that if that movie's only available on Amazon Prime, even if they weren't going there for the movies, it's one less thing you have to access these movies.
Well, it's also, it feels like at the beginning of this whole streaming thing, Netflix really had the whole market cornered. And it feels like every company has kind of figured out that we don't need Netflix. We are a big enough entity to be able to create our own website and make our own subscription model, and we can just cut the middleman out. But what that has done has created this market of what you're saying is there's so many services to sign up for now that it is almost rivaling the amount you're paying for cable. Yeah. And you have to end up putting in more work to watch stuff because you can't just flip around on a box.
Right. Well, I mean, I would say you can to an extent. Like if you've got like a smart TV, a Roku TV, you can go back to your home, you can pick the service you want, and then go find what you want. But
that's true. I guess
a lot of my issue is a lot of these streaming services, their UIs suck.
Yeah, they do.
Disney Plus is a great example. Disney's UI sucks. And so I think that's another problem is these companies are so quick to churn out content that a lot of the times the quality of not just the movies, which we're also definitely going to get into, but the quality of the streaming services seems almost haphazard at this point. Almost kind of like with video games where they'll put a game out and then they'll just fix problems along the way. It's like, no, like, dude, you're already paying for it. Put it out correctly, or just wait, or just hold off on putting it out. There's so much competition there now that I think that's where another part of the quality of the streaming services themselves kind of starts to kind of go on a downslide a little bit.
Well, and I think all of this has led to the mass population, I think, uses streaming services now, which
100%.
I think
100%.
Even 5 years ago may not have been the case. And I know there are still parts of this country, let alone other countries, where you can't rely on the internet enough to stream. Right. And so there are still people collecting physical media, but I feel like the majority of people in the US and probably Canada, if I had to guess, have moved into streaming services, which...
Although, Netflix, as of 2019, still had 2 million people that were getting DVDs from them.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. Yes. They don't have...
I'm still shocked at how prevalent the stupid DVD is, too. It amazes me.
Not discs, but DVD in particular.
Literal DVDs, yes.
Yeah. So I'd started without getting too far ahead, I'd gone and done a Reddit thread to kind of get us a little bit of information for this, just kind of get a vibe from people.
Right.
And one person mentioned that if you're going to go buy a TV nowadays, unless you are on an extreme budget, the TV is going to be 4K. I have 3 4K TVs in my house, and I think the most expensive one was like $700. So, and the cheapest one I got around Black Friday for like $300. So the problem I have with DVD is that maybe people just don't care about the quality. Maybe they just straight up don't notice. But if you watch a DVD on a large 4K TV, which is easily accessible now without sounding like elitist or anything, but it's easily accessible. It's probably what you're going to buy if you're looking for a new TV. It is highly noticeable when you put a DVD on. I mean, I notice the difference whenever you put like a Blu-ray on versus a 4K movie.
Oh yeah, me too.
You put a DVD on, and that stuff to me, I mean, it's a little snobby, but it is unwatchable to me.
Well, that's what's so weird, though, is you also collect VHS. And that stuff, to me, I'm wearing a VHS shirt as I say this. That stuff, to me, is unwatchable at this point. Like, it's so blurry. We have moved so far from DVDs, but I think it's still the most purchased of Blu-ray, DVD, and 4K.
Actually.
Is that not true?
No.
The last time I looked into it, that was the case.
DVD only makes up 10% of the market now.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep. Which, again, why are we making them?
Well,
why are we still... If it's not even a fiscally sound decision or fiscally sound product, why... do people... 10%, people don't want them. People don't want them. That's not 10% of movies. That is 10% of physical media. DVD makes up 10% of the physical media sales. So we're not even talking streaming. So why are we making them if people don't even want them anymore?
No, I actually completely agree because I'm always shocked whenever I go into a store, as few actual movies are sitting around in stores now, how many of them are DVDs.
You're talking about new, like when you go to like Walmart or
right, when you
something like
go to
that,
buy a new one, Target, Walmart, Best Buy, all these places, their movie section has been declining so quickly, not only in quality but in how many they're carrying. And it's happened. I have gone into very few of these places to buy movies in the last few years. I've done most of my collecting from Diabolic DVD and Amazon and a couple other places like that. And so for me, it's not really that big of a deal because a lot of what I collect anyway are indie labels. And so it's not that big of a deal for me. But what it does mean is it's not only has streaming taken over for most people, but that choice is being taken away from them at all by the fact that this is happening. And
well,
most
dude, like
people,
with the new Ghostbusters movie, we wanted to do a review on the new Ghostbusters movie, and the only way to get it was to buy it off of a streaming service that I'm already paying for. I don't know why my voice cracked like I'm just going through puberty now, but I gotta pay X, and this is the thing that just drives me nuts about these streaming services, is where you gotta pay to buy a movie off of a service you're already paying for. No, absolutely not. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I feel like Disney kind of made that the standard whenever they started releasing stuff over the pandemic, and it is becoming a standard thing. And I feel like streaming is becoming one of those things. If you want to see the new movie, you got to go to a theater or pay $20. I paid $20 to buy Ghostbusters on a streaming service,
and you're getting lower quality.
Exactly, and that's the thing. That's the thing I think most people don't notice about it is the, oh my God, man, the blockiness of streaming is something that it's so hard to watch a movie on streaming because of that. And
this is something I talked to Brittany about this last night, because 4K on a streaming service, 4K streams at 16 megabytes per second. 4K on a movie plays, the bit rate is over 80 megabytes a second. And one thing she was saying that was basically that, internet is getting faster, and at a certain point, you're going to be able to stream it at that rate. But what people aren't thinking about is fiber optic is still brand new. Fiber optic is still making it out there, and fiber optic, these streaming services can still only put it out at 16 megabytes per second. It's going to be a long time before they're able to stream 4K content at 4K quality like you would see on a disc. And so to me, that's why that's where the whole physical media thing dying is really sad to me, is because you're not only getting lower quality through a streaming service, but you're not gonna get the quality for a real long time. We're not gonna see it for a long time. It's just not gonna happen. And it's why when we see like 8K TVs come out, you're gonna release 8K TVs, but everything's going to streaming. I'm telling you right now, you are not going to get 8K streaming. It's not going to happen. I have no way. I can't predict the future, but I'm telling you right now, in our lifetime, 8K streaming and 8K quality will not be a thing. It's just too big. It's just too big. And so I feel like it's this. It really, what it comes down to, I think, for most people, is a convenience factor. I think most people, they don't care about the quality, which, I mean, I guess you could kind of tie into the whole, the old adage that story is king. More people are worried about their stories. But at the end of the day, it's an art form. Film is an art form. And these movies are created to a certain standard, which ties into the art form. And if I'm not going to get it at that quality, why get rid of the thing that can give me the highest quality?
Well, and that's the thing. You inherently, being a Blu-ray and DVD collector, you're inherently kind of a movie snob. just inherently.
Yeah, and we have enough self-awareness to know that.
Yeah, and the type of person that is going to put all of these things up on their wall are not only the type of personality to collect a lot of things, but also are typically pretty obsessive about things.
Right.
And Physical media is one of the things I've noticed that the collecting community is really passionate about collecting and sharing knowledge about it. And seeing that slowly being sort of taken away from being able to walk in and buy new DVDs. I have a comment from this video here that I want to read that kind of relates into this. It says, I don't think physical discs are dying. The way in which we're sold is just changing. No one goes to the store to buy them anymore. Everyone just gets them online through Amazon, etc. It's sort of like CDs with music, which is something I saw brought up on your Reddit post a lot, comparing it to the music industry, which is actually something I did in this video over a year ago at this point. I think personally, this is my opinion on what's happening with Blu-rays and 4K. All of these new places that you can go, Walmart, Target, Best Buy, wherever you buy your Blu-rays are getting smaller and fewer and far between to try to find new stuff. Unless you have a place kind of like Brett has, where I used to live, where we would go, and Entertain Mart there in Colorado Springs is incredible.
It's awesome.
Those places are rare. And because those places are rare, it's sort of driven a lot of this collecting stuff online, which is not my favorite. Part of what I like to do with collecting is going out and seeing what I can find. And because all of this is sort of moved into collecting online, I have been collecting less. And if I'm collecting less, that means most people are almost not buying at all because of the convenience factor, because they don't have to have this laying around, because it frees up space. And all of this can be attributed to the music industry. You don't have to have CDs laying around anymore. Right. Physical collectors do. CDs still sell pretty well. Vinyl sells amazingly well for how old it is. I collect vinyl. Tapes still sell. Right. All of this stuff is still around, but it's sold to a very niche market. And I think that is where we are headed as Blu-ray collectors. It's already kind of that way when you collect boutique and more obscure labels. It's more that way anyway. You have to kind of hunt down stuff, and you have to pre-order things if you want the thing that you really want, and all that. It's more like drops at this point from like Supreme or something. And I hope that's not the direction we're heading, where everything is super limited and everything is online all the time, and bots are picking stuff up and all that kind of crap. It's already happening a little bit, but.
Well, my two things on everything you just said. First of all, my argument for that comment that they said where it's not dying, it's being consumed differently, I feel is completely false. It's false and correct.
As far as people are moving into buying physical online.
Well, they said it's not that it's dying; it's that it's being consumed differently.
I think the ways in which they are sold are just changing, is what he said.
Well, no, like they are. We are losing new titles on physical media. They are not being released.
I mean, the Tender Bar is a great example of that. Yep.
They have no intention of giving it a physical release. The issue I have with comparing streaming music to streaming movies is that when you stream music, it is CD quality. When you stream movies, it is not 4K Blu-ray quality.
That's true, but I don't think most people care about that in the same way that they don't care about it being a CD lossless audio whenever they stream Pink Floyd or
that's
whatever.
Fair. Yeah, that's fair.
It's more about whenever I go to Spotify versus pulling a record out, I don't want to go pull the record out. It's work. And I enjoy pulling the movies out. That's something I'm into, but it's also work. And most people don't want to do that, which I can't hold against them. It's about convenience.
I feel like you're touching on another facet of the
laziness
loss of quality.
is going to win this battle. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Well, what you're starting to do is you're starting to touch on another facet of the term quality, which is the experience. Streaming a movie is not the same experience as watching it on physical media. And I don't just mean going out and collecting. I don't mean just having it. I don't mean just, the nostalgic aspect of putting it in and, in watching it in a nostalgic way. But you literally don't have as much content when you're streaming. You don't have the bonus features. You don't have the behind the scenes. You don't have the
trailers.
You don't have the trailers. That's a big part. That's a big thing with VHS collecting. One of the really cool things about VHS collecting is you get to watch these trailers, and a lot of the old VHS had like the old commercials on them and stuff like that. And so there's a nostalgia aspect to it. For VHS, that's a nostalgia aspect. For Blu-ray, 4K, even DVDs, it's a quality aspect. You aren't getting as much of an experience with the movie. You don't have as much interaction with the movie itself as you do when you're streaming it.
I agree with you, but I really hate to keep hammering down on this, but most people don't care. Most people don't watch.
No, you're absolutely right. You're right.
Commentary and trailers and dive into the director, what the director had to say in the interview on set, and all that kind of stuff. Most people don't care, and this comes back around to us being obsessive movie people. Right. It's frustrating, and a lot of people in this camp that are hardcore collectors and stuff are almost refusing to see what's happening by keeping their eyes closed. It's kind of like people that are hanging on to DSLRs right now in the camera world.
Right.
Like, yes, they still work and they are great, but that's not where the future is. And what you're saying about us never getting 8K as far as streaming goes, I'm going to have to go ahead and agree, but I'm also going to pile on top of that. We're not going to see 8K discs either. And if we do, that's 15 years from now, at least.
Oh, at least 15 years from now.
And so I kind of feel like the reason I haven't really hardcore collected 4K, I've got about 40 of them or so. But the reason I haven't seriously collected 4K is because I have not seen a future in it since day one. And that, more than anything, is, I think, its biggest issue. Because if I, as somebody who's hardcore collecting this stuff, don't see, other than, yes, the video, the actual quality of the picture is better, and the sound the sound is, that more than anything sells 4K for me. But generally speaking, there's not enough there for me to go out and buy a third copy of Ghostbusters. I bought it on DVD. I have now bought it on Blu-ray. I don't want to buy it again. And moreover, I was kind of on the train with Blu-ray whenever I decided, okay, whenever HD DVD lost to Blu-ray, the moment that happened, I started buying Blu-rays. And it's because I could see that as a physical thing that I can collect for the foreseeable future. I'm not sure 4K is going to be supported enough in the future in order for me to fully jump over all the way. And the reason I bring this up is because Windows 11 is having issues right now with, let me pull this up on my phone because...
God, Microsoft. Ugh. Oh, Microsoft.
You know...
Good thing they bought Activision.
SGX depreciation prevents PC playback of 4K Blu-ray discs. Now, I don't want to go into what technically that means, but basically, Windows 11 is not allowing people to play 4K discs. And unless something drastic changes, which it could, not to mention, there's only a handful of companies that produce 4K players now.
Right.
Samsung called it quits not too long ago, and I think that was sort of the beginning of the end.
I didn't know that. Well, that's the thing, though, is I think with 4K, I can see 4K came out at the cusp of when streaming was really blowing up. So I think it's a really bad timing for it, because you basically you have a lot of people going from. You don't have a lot of people like us that are going from 4K to streaming. You have a lot of people going from Blu-ray to streaming. So I think that that's a big part of why people don't see the necessity in owning 4K discs, because the jump from Blu-ray to 4K streaming is still a jump in quality. It's also a lack of quality because, like you said, like you have blocking and shadows. I also don't like the fact that the quality of the movie is predicated on how strong my signal is at the time. This happened when I was watching The Tender Bar. When I first started watching The Tender Bar for the first hour, it looked great. At a certain point, dude, it looked like I had to pause it so it could buffer.
Yeah.
So I have to now pause it, which
I have
is
to
taking
do that on
me...
YouTube sometimes.
Yeah. And so, and that's again,
We
it's
both
another.
have very good internet, by the way.
Yeah, dude, I got fiber optic,
We both
man.
have very good internet.
And that's the thing that drives me insane is like I feel like the viewing experience, and again, it sounds very snobby, and most people aren't going to give a crap. I don't like the fact that the viewing experience of the movie has a stranglehold on it.
Well,
I hate that.
So I found this. This is a Samsung spokesperson. Quote, Samsung will no longer introduce new Blu-ray or 4K Blu-ray player models in the U.S. market.
Blu-ray or 4K.
And that's saying a lot. That's one of the bigger people in that space. Sony makes a great 4K player. There's Sanyo and a couple other smaller companies that are making good players. But what happens when those players aren't being pushed enough? What happens when there are no Best Buys for people to walk in and buy 4K players for their new 4K TV? With what you're saying between internet connection and the actual quality of 4K, I'm seeing less and less of a reason to invest higher than 4K anyway. And I don't want to say this, but it might be the case where 4K is our last physical media. And
I would say you're probably not off target there.
I don't like saying that either, but I honest to God think it's the truth. And again, I do believe that there are going to be smaller indie labels producing stuff like Scream Factory and you know, Blue Underground and a whole bunch of others, Criterion, all those people are still going to probably continue, but they're not going to be making nearly as much because the stores are not going to want to hold that stuff for the small niche of people that are buying it, other than like what maybe the small vinyl selection is at Walmart where they have like 10 records or whatever, you know what I mean? It may turn into something like that, but there's not going to be enough of a reason for them to produce more than they know that they can sell in the long-term future. And that's just going to drive it more and more, which is going to make it more and more expensive, which the secondhand market is going to go up and up. And we're talking about new stuff here. The secondhand market is a completely different topic. The secondhand market is going to be booming for a long time, I think.
It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. And all of that is still totally, you can still walk into pawn shops and stuff. We're mostly talking about new releases. Commercially viable new releases in big box stores mostly. And it's just dead. It's not dying. I think it's dead. Or at the very least on its very, very last leg.
Well, I hate to say it, but I think you're right, and I find that really depressing because I feel like it's really indicative of movies being not that they haven't always been a money-making machine, but I really feel like it's indicative of when you care less about putting out quality. And I don't mean from a filmmaking standpoint, but when it's okay to put out a less quality experience, I feel like that's indicative of it being more about making a profit than it is about making an experience when you're actually watching it. And that's a big problem to me, but it's also something that I've felt kind of has been a thing for several years now, ever since superhero movies started blowing up, to where it's like people don't care. And the reason I have an issue with that is because I look at film as an art form. And when you're taking away quality, it shows that you care more about money than you do about the art form of it, which is going to basically just give us a lot of... It makes the experience a lot more banal.
So that's kind of some of our thoughts on this stuff. Let's go ahead and work in... like you said earlier, you did come up with you started a Reddit thread about... this dying. I want to read a couple of comments here before we jump onto that, and then we'll also go over a couple of articles here. This is the one I want to read here. This says, I remember when video games were becoming digital, and some feared that the end of physical video games, but it never happened. So I don't think it'll happen to movies or TV shows either. Now, let me read my response to this. It hasn't fully happened to video games yet. The fact that consoles are now being made without disc drives at all proves that this is eventually going to be the way that it is. I personally play on a PC and have not purchased a physical copy of a video game in over 4 years, but I know the whole industry as a whole isn't there yet. Physical physical movies will continue to be made, but in very small supply, much like the vinyl industry. In my opinion, for hardcore collectors only. Small, quote, indie labels aren't going anywhere, but my overall point is we shouldn't be blindly supporting small labels by purchasing everything they put out in the name of completionism. Yep. So that's, I think you can draw some parallels to the video game industry here, but moreover, this is its own monster. And it has its own unique set of problems. You can compare it to the music industry too, but like you said, it's different.
Well, and I think I left a comment on there too. My issue with what they were saying about that was the fact that when you have only a digital copy of a game, again, we're coming back to quality. The quality of that game is predicated on the hardware that you're using to play it. Whereas with movies, the quality of that movie is predicated on several different factors. Regardless, you could have a $4,000 high-end curved OLED or QLED TV, and it's still going to look subpar compared to the physical copy of it, because even if your internet is stable the entire time, it's still going to look worse. And video games are another great example where the way they look, the quality of what's on screen will affect the experience you have with it. Go play something in 60 hertz. Go play something in 244 hertz. You tell me what the experience is like. Go play a game at 1080. Go play a game at full 4K. Tell me what the experience is like. And that experience is predicated on the hardware that you have, the money that you spend. You could spend all the money you want on all the great movie going hardware you want. If you're streaming it, the quality is still less. And not to mention, when you buy that game, you have that game. Like you have that game.
That's something we haven't touched on yet. When you buy a movie on physical disc, when you buy a game on physical disc, you own that thing. Yes. And streaming services, digital downloads, it doesn't matter if you pay iTunes for Grandma's Boy or not. If some legal thing happens, they can pull it. And
a lot of these contracts have deadlines on them.
Right.
It's why you'll see something pop up on Netflix. You go to see if it's there a few months later, and it's gone because the contract ran out.
Yeah. And that's never going to happen with a physical piece of media like this.
No.
Ever, ever, ever.
And that's why I say, like, this isn't just... It's not that this just affects collectors. This affects people that want to watch movies. The problem is, I don't think most people realize how it affects them, or if it bothers them, they just kind of move on to the next thing.
So here's another comment I kind of want to go over. It says, one of the reasons I have not switched to 4K, besides the high price, is special features. I've seen many people praising new 4K releases, and when I go to research them, they have very few, if any, special features. A lot of the time, the standard Blu-ray will be more feature-rich. The picture quality is not enough of a jump for me to blindly get 4Ks, and if they can't entice me with at least porting all existing features over, I would love to get extra features if possible, then there is no point for me to upgrade. And admittedly, I'm not a huge feature person. I will watch the occasional interview and all that kind of stuff, so that's not nearly as important to me. But that is definitely something that I have noticed, is that these 4Ks are kind of like the bare bones Blu-rays that come out. But all of them are like this, where they don't give you anything but the movie and maybe the trailer.
I actually bought Candyman on 4K. Don't recommend it. But I bought Candyman, and I noticed that the Blu-ray had a lot more special features on it. But yeah, no, I think that's a valid point as far as the special features go. I think it's a valid point.
Here's another one that says, people who say why buy when it's all available to stream make me laugh. I know multiple people who pay $200 a month, if not more, between cable and streaming services. I can buy 70 to 100 Blu-rays at a pawn shop for that, and it takes me much more than a month to watch 70 to 100 movies. Plus, I never have to worry about a streaming service losing rights to a movie I own.
That's the big one for me.
And that's, I think personally, that's a big deal. And I worry... The reason I worry about this so much, and I think that this is a bigger deal than most people realize, is that's what we're giving up. We're giving up our ability to own the thing that we paid for.
Right.
And this is happening across the board with music, video games, and movies, where we are paying seemingly the same amount for a digital good than we do for a physical good. And without the cost of manufacturing that physical good, why am I paying you the exact same amount of money for less features, less things altogether? And it's just, and it's people are willingly giving that up, which is why this concerns me and why I think this is such a big deal.
Right. Yeah, no, you're right. And that's again, I don't know if it's just like, I don't know what it is or why it bothers us more than it bothers other people. Or the general public, but it does make you kind of wonder, like, do you not care? Do you not care where your money's going? Do you not care that you're being screwed over? Because that's what it really feels like. It feels like you're being screwed over. Like if you want to access something, you got to pay for it. Fine, absolutely, I get that. But once I've paid you for this service, why do I either have a limited time on it or why do I have to pay more? And again, we come back to Disney Plus and Amazon being probably the biggest culprits of this, where it's like, okay, I'm already paying you, but because you want to make more money, because you need to recoup losses, whatever, I get that. But at the end of the day, that's not my problem. And why am I that's really where I come down to. I mean, if they're not going to care about basically, having something, being able to give something to somebody and letting them have it, why should I care about why you need to recoup your losses? I shouldn't have to pay you $15 a month. I'm going to pay you $30. That's the thing. If you want to buy these new on these streaming services, you have to pay $30 to watch them. And sometimes you don't own them, like with Mulan. You're paying $30 to access it. You're not paying $30 to buy it. You're paying $30 to access it. $5 more gets you a 4K movie. And even if you don't have a 4K player, it's going to come with a Blu-ray and you future-proofed yourself with that movie.
Yeah, assuming you have a player to play it sometime in the future.
Which you will, because they're going to be, yeah, I mean, if they get rid of them altogether, that's a fair point.
It may become like trying to find a VHS player.
But again, that's what's so frustrating to me is it's almost like it's like people don't know they're being screwed over, but they are being screwed over.
I don't think it's that they don't know. I think they're willing to give that up for convenience. And this is why I say laziness is going to win this war, because people are willing to give owning the thing up in order to be able to have it at just a couple clicks away, which... Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I can't believe you paid that much for Mulan. That's crazy.
No. Oh, no. Let's clarify. I did not pay that much.
I thought you
Mulan.
did. Okay.
No, I waited 2 months for it to come back down and just be part of the service. I am not giving, especially Disney of all companies. I mean, okay, fair enough. There's a lot of Disney movies right there. There's a lot of Disney movies right here.
Yeah.
But I own these. These are mine.
Right.
I own these, and I will pay that for. I am not giving Disney, of all companies, $30 on top of the subscription service, especially when, I'm going to be honest with you, they haven't come out with anything in a while that I've been, like, crazy about anyway.
Here's another comment, and this is a quote of mine from this video. And when it's just readily available on streaming services, why would anyone spend more money every single month to collect and hold on to this plastic and physical thing that takes up space? Most people aren't going to do that, end quote. This comment says, I think the reason some people are like this is because from what I read, streaming services can strip certain things off of them. Like say you had your favorite show you were enjoying on your favorite streaming service, and then one day when you're in the middle of the run of it, perhaps, it's gone. Either because the rights have expired or because, more likely, the lack of popularity. No one wants to see a certain thing anymore in their estimation, so it goes off into the wild blue yonder to be replaced by the, quote, latest and greatest of today. And I think that's the thing, man. It's just about having control over what you're watching and your ability to do this stuff.
100%.
And when you're not given a choice that's when this becomes a problem. Right now, we still kind of have a choice, even though it's been kind of, I don't know, slowing down recently.
Let's look at Cocoon is a great example. Cocoon, you cannot stream. Not available. Not available anywhere.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Anywhere. And that is a classic movie.
Yeah.
So if you want to watch it, you have to have a physical copy of it. However, they're not releasing a new physical copy of it. It's like, and someone else mentioned on that same thread, they were concerned about it from a preservation standpoint. And I think that's a really, 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 really good point, is that these movies aren't being preserved anymore, which again comes back to, it's not an art form anymore, it's just a money-making machine. I think you're going to see two outcomes from that. You're either going to see this reversal, like we saw when superhero movies started coming out, where you saw this kind of change from more movies that people cared about making into this into this industry where companies just cared about making money. And I feel like we can either keep going down that road, or eventually there's going to be another switch to where people are like, okay, dude, we've had enough. We need something more. We need something that makes us feel.
Yeah. Hopefully
and maybe that's not fair, because people love superhero movies and they care about those characters.
Well, and that's all fine, but the problem is that's pretty much all we're being given, and it's especially true for theatrical releases.
Oh, 100%.
And I think that's where, and granted, theatrical releases are not where a majority of movies are seen nowadays.
No, I haven't gone to a theater in years, but that's because I have social anxiety.
Right. The last movie I saw in a theater was a showing of the Muppet movie, and it was amazing. Actually, no, that's not true. I saw the newest Dune, and it was an amazing experience in a theater. Okay, so what I want to do here is you brought a list of articles and a couple Reddit threads and stuff to talk about, and I want to go through some of these because maybe these will bring some perspective that you and I do not have to this whole situation, which is also the reason, A, you created that Reddit thread, B, I wanted to go through the comments on that video because I've had some of those comments in the back of my head about this video for a long time, and I think it's important to bring up other people's perspectives in this because you and I are far from the average collector. So
here's the thing: we're gonna get into these articles, but basically, what we're going to find is that I think we've covered a lot of what's in these articles already.
Right.
We're still going to go into them just because it is important to see it from other perspectives. We'll just get into this first one. Basically, what it's this article's from Business Insiders. It talks about basically why invest in physical media when you can cut down on space and money and stream everything online. And collectors said it boils down to a few reasons: uncompressed bit rates, better movie quality, special features, a more nostalgic movie watching experience, and greater assurance that you'll always have access to your favorite movies and shows. But this talks about how these collectors that they interviewed buy their movies, but they also have a couple streaming services available at all times. And what that allows them to do is it allows them to watch with convenience, but also watch with assurance as well. It's convenient to have it and have it just readily available there at a few clicks. But again, it also, by owning a physical copy of it, it also assures them that if they want to go watch it, they're going to be able to go and watch it whenever they want to. And it's not going to be available at the whims of whatever company is streaming it at any given time.
I mean, I think, unfortunately, the biggest issue with that I have is redundancy. You're paying for something twice.
Sure. Now, granted, absolutely. I agree.
I do this too. With that being said, I have Hulu, I have HBO Max, and I have Shudder, and I feel like and right now I have Showtime because I just watched through Dexter New Blood, but I'm also a collector, and so I totally understand where that's coming from. But at the same time, it kind of pisses me off that that's even necessary because it is so redundant.
It's one of those things where, like you said, you have to do it.
Yeah.
You have to do it to ensure that you can actually watch the things you want to watch when you want to watch them, basically. And again, the flip side to that is when you're going to watch a movie and you want to watch a movie multiple times, it means that movie means something to you. So what that tells me is that these things don't mean anything to people the way they used to, or the way they may to you and I. Because if most people don't care about having it available when they want, that means they don't care about going back and watching it, and they're just watching it, they're consuming it, and they're moving on to the next thing. I think it's very indicative of the day and age that we live in, where it's, okay, I watched this, I saw it, I don't need to see it again. Because there's no reason to see it again. Like, if you, now I can't say again. I don't want to keep harping on the same Marvel movies, so I'm gonna try not to. But because I don't think it's just the Marvel movies doing it. I think you have this in most of the movies that are being watched now, where there isn't really a reason to go back and watch them again. You consumed them, you saw it, I don't care anymore. Now, that might not be indicative of the movie industry, that might be more of a societal thing, and I think it's much more a societal thing than it is a movie thing, where it's just, we live in a day and age where, like I said, you consume something, you move on to the next thing, because there's always a next thing. And I think that's why we have so many sequels now, and I think it's also a byproduct of having so many sequels, where it's, okay, I saw this, but I want to see the next thing. Because, and I don't know if it's because, to me, I think it's almost because the original experience wasn't impactful enough to really care about going back to it and seeing it again. Again, we've come back to the Tender Bar several times, but that's because I think it's the most recent example of what we're talking about. The Tender Bar is something that, like, Brittany hasn't watched it yet. I want to watch it with Brittany because I want to watch it again. But not only do I want to watch it again, I want her to experience that. There's a lot of times I'll watch movies and I'll be like, okay, that was good, but I don't really care about going back and watching it again. Like with the original Matrix. The original Matrix is something I go back and watch over and over and over again. And it is an action-packed movie. It is a vibrant movie. It is aesthetically pleasing, but there is an amazing story in there that I can't experience other ways. Whereas with, like, again, a lot of action movies, superhero movies, sci-fi movies, I can watch that movie, but I can get elements of that movie in other movies too.
Well, so let's move on to another one of these articles. We'll do one from Red Shark next. This is the big reason why physical media isn't dead.
This is actually where I got the whole Cocoon thing from, was this article.
Okay.
They also bring up The Abyss, which is an amazing movie, an amazing classic movie that, again, is something that I feel people should watch and should experience, and they can't if they don't buy a physical copy of it. And that's why I picked these articles, because I feel like they all touched on aspects of what we're talking about and what our issues are. The last one touched base from a collector's perspective and a quality perspective. This is touching base on streaming versus physical media from a stranglehold or from a restriction standpoint. And that's what I really liked about this particular article, is it's really showing that if you want to watch something, you only get to if the company you're paying money to is allowing you to. And that's where I would say, over quality, this might be my biggest issue with streaming. Quality is something where I notice it and it irks me. Availability is something that I notice and it pisses me off. It pisses me off. I am paying you good money. I'm paying you hundreds of dollars a year. One streaming service is $15 a month. $12 months in a year. We're going to say that's what is that? $160, almost $200 a year for one streaming service. Dude. And you're going to tell me I got to sit here and basically go, Daddy, can I please watch this movie? No, I'm sorry. That movie's not for you. We don't have that movie for you. That pisses me off to absolutely no end, because you shouldn't be, you don't get to do that. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. It boggles my mind that it doesn't make more people angry. It boggles my mind that more people don't get pissed off, and maybe they don't get pissed off because they don't see it that way, but it just, how do you not see it that way?
The biggest problem with this whole thing is, like you said, being allowed to watch this or the other. And this is why owning something is so important. And it's why both of us are so passionate about this, because it's like, if you don't own that thing, you don't get to choose when you can watch it, or if you get to see it in its original form, a lot like Star Wars. Star Wars is something that you have to hunt down a very specific thing to be able to see that in its original form.
They could make so much money.
And it's because the creator of said thing didn't want that.
Have you watched the Muppet Christmas Carol streaming on Disney Plus?
The Haunted Mansion one?
No. The original Christmas Carol.
No, I have the DVD of that, so I don't
there is an entire scene deleted out of that movie on
Which
streaming.
one?
Where he's in Christmas Past, and they're singing "The Love Is Gone."
Okay.
You remember that song?
Yep.
Nope, not in there. It's not in there, and there's no reason for it to not be in there. There's no reason for it to not be in there. There's nothing controversial about it.
Sometimes it's a music licensing issue. They may not have they may not have the rights to that song, so they may have had to have cut it from that movie because they no longer have the rights to the song, which may be why it wasn't anywhere in the first place.
Well, no, they're actually. This is so stupid. I had not thought about that.
Or they may have the rights for physical releases, but not digital or whatever. Like,
they're gonna put it back.
You think so? Once they
they are going to put it back.
They probably now own the company that had the rights to it.
But how do you not have the rights to that one song, but you have the rights to the rest of them?
It all depends on what the deal was made at the time and how long. Alan Wake is a good example of this. Alan Wake for a while was pulled off all of the
great game
stores.
If you haven't played it.
Great game, but it was pulled off all the digital stores because music licensing issues had come up, and they were no longer allowed to sell this game with that music unless they renewed it or replaced it or whatever. So
okay.
It's a very valid thing that does happen sometimes.
Okay, but I had not thought about it that way. To me, it was just them going, "We don't like this song. We don't want it in there anymore." And don't get me wrong, it's a pretty bad song. But that's not the point. That's not the point. My point is, it's this.
It doesn't matter how bad it is.
I don't like the idea of retroactively changing things just to meet the whims of the creators.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing, and that's what gets me about like the original Star Wars movies is George Lucas was like, no, it's my way. I want it this way. And it's like, first of all, I mean, in that specific instance, you didn't add anything that made it better. In fact, you added stuff that made it worse. I mean, I know you're not real familiar with Star Wars, but it didn't add anything to it. And that's my whole thing is like, you created it. We fell in love with this thing the way that it was, and you want to change it just because it's not up to your standards now. Then make something new in that universe that is up to your standards. Don't just go back and constantly change shit over and over and over again. It doesn't add anything. And again, this is where I'm coming back to is it's just a money-making machine again. It's not an art form. It's not an experience. It's just we want to make more money off of it. How do we do that? And when you find the formula that works, they just kind of stick with it.
Well, so let's wrap all this up. We've been recording for an hour and 20 now.
I could go on for another 2.
I know. I feel like this is a much longer conversation than one podcast will allow. We touch on this quite often, so this conversation will definitely come up again. Yeah, but let's go through some of these Reddit posts because last night, in order to get prepared for this podcast, you turned to Reddit and asked them what they thought about this whole thing.
Yep.
And I thought it would be a good way to kind of end this just to see what everybody is saying on there.
We'll just go through the first top-rated one. This is from Mmurray. They said, physical media will turn into the same draw of collectability as the other forms of media, like records. The response to that was, but it really sucks when physical is your preferred medium, and because it's become niche, you won't always have the movies or shows you want to watch in that format. And that is something I agree with both of them. It is going to go the way of vinyl. It will eventually go the way of vinyl. I honestly, unfortunately, I don't think that can help but happen. However, it's really unfortunate. It's really, really unfortunate because it's just going to get more expensive the more niche it becomes.
Yep.
The more limited the availability comes. That's just kind of the way capitalism works. Is the more the lack of availability makes it more expensive to cover the costs.
Well, it's also going to cost these companies more to produce less, because generally speaking, whenever you're buying raw materials for stuff like this, with fewer people out there to buy this stuff, each thing is going to start costing more, which is why I've been yelling for over a year now about holding companies accountable for their quality control as prices continue to go up and up on this stuff. The more we're paying for each release, the more we need to be holding these smaller indie labels that are going to carry the weight of this community on their backs. While they do that, we need to make sure that we keep them up with their quality control and hold them responsible for the stuff that they're putting out.
100%. 100%, because it's really easy for you to just take for granted the fact that you can still get it, and then not care about the quality, because if you don't care about the quality, then what is the point of going that way anyway?
Exactly.
The next top comment was not something I was expecting. It's from Samael13, and they're a librarian, which I thought was a really cool perspective to add into this. And they said streaming services compete with each other, and an increasing number of titles don't get physical releases, which leaves a lot of my patrons without the ability to see them. The streaming market is getting very fractured. Now you have to subscribe to a bunch of different services. We can't offer them to our patrons, so if they want to watch things, they've got to subscribe to a bunch of different services. One aspect that they brought up was that a lot of people still don't have home internet. As mind-boggling as that might sound to some of us, we really do take for granted the availability of the internet.
Yep.
There are a lot of, not just in other countries like third world countries, in the US, there are a lot of people that just can't, especially in this day and age when everything's getting so expensive. There are a lot of people that cannot afford the internet. Film is something that a lot of people latch onto, even if they don't think about it in the same way that you and I might think about it from a collector's standpoint or from a passion standpoint. This is an escape for a lot of people. Movies are an escape for a lot of people. And when you make it less available to those people, I think you're really doing a disservice to people who need it more on an emotional level, more on a lifestyle level. It's one of those things that it helps people. Film helps people. It's just like sports. It helps them unwind. It helps them disconnect from the crappiness going on, whether it be something as simple as work stress, life stress, whatever it is. It's a form of escape for a lot of people. And that's why I was actually so grateful for this comment, because it really made me think about this in a different light, not just in a companies have a stranglehold or we're not getting the quality that we would normally get, but it gives you the perspective of it means something to a lot of people. When you take that away, you're taking something important away from them.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something I have not considered. Libraries?
No, me neither.
Have you
Kinda
ever
take it for
considered that?
granted.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point, because coming from our positions, it is like we have good internet and these movies look terrible, and it's like, man, put some perspective on that and just think about how lucky we are to be able to do that at all.
Yeah.
So,
which is not going to stop me from bitching about it.
Yeah, but that's the problem. It's like, I don't think it matters how much we complain about this. It's not going to change. And these companies have figured out that this is the way forward. And hanging on to these physical things, while we can do our best to do that, eventually all of these physical things, a lot like many tapes have already become, they're going to become obsolete and unusable. And eventually we're not going to have a choice. So while we have a choice, you have to sort of take advantage of having the choice while we can.
Don't take it for granted.
And don't take it for granted. So that's really what it comes down to, I think. But what do you think? You got any more you want to go through here?
I love your name, by the way. Hey, Slim, I just drank a 5. From a creative slant, I think that the lack of physical media in favor of digital will lower the quality of the media itself. One thing I always heard from old heads in the music scene is how absolutely demanding it was to learn their craft pre-90s. If you wanted to learn a song, there weren't video tutorials or transcribing software. You just had to sit in your garage and practice until your fingers bled. One of them talked about physically slowing down a record they wanted to learn, which drops the pitch of the song over and over, breaking the record and searching around a couple of towns until they found another copy. This is tedious, but it led to a music scene where everyone had a deeply personal sound and a good knowledge of how things worked because they spent a million hours fighting the tech. I'm not going to go into the rest of it because, like I said, it's 4 or 5 paragraphs long. But again, I think it's a really, really good point where when you have so much access, when it's so easy to just churn this stuff out and you know people are going to just follow a formula, where's the creativity anymore?
Yep.
Where's the creativity for it? It's just a formulaic way of making money. And I think, again, that's where it comes down to is companies are realizing they don't have to treat movies as an artistic form because they're going to make money off of it. And I understand it's a business. You got to recoup losses. Business 101 is an ROIs are business 101. I get that. But we're still talking about an art form here. We're still talking about an art form. And when you turn it into a money-making machine, there's no creativity. When you have no creativity, people don't have to think as much.
Well, I also think part of it is, honestly, dude, is that when everything is just a click away, it doesn't mean as much. And that's true. This is something I struggle with a lot, kind of with social media, is the more you see something, the less value it has. And the more options you have of that thing, the less perceived value it has. And
it's like artistic desensitization.
Right. One of the things that was going for movies back in the day is it was kind of an event, whether you were renting one or pay-per-viewing it or buying it or going to the theater. It was sort of a thing that you had to go out of your way to do. And now it's almost like more of an afterthought that you put on in the background. And it's not something that you pay attention to. It's just kind of noise. And the more options you have for that thing, it goes back to what you were saying earlier. The love of it has kind of gone away a little bit for most people, I think, because it is so readily available. It is taken for granted in general. And therefore, when a company says, hey, we're not going to put physical things out anymore, but don't worry, you're going to have everything at the touch of a button, it not only devalues that as a product, it also creates lower expectations for the people consuming said product. I can't blame people for just kind of going to streaming services, but at the same time, people need to realize what they're doing when they do that is they are headed in a direction for the future that means you don't own stuff. It means you don't get to have a choice on whether you see the original version of something. It means that you are paying more for less over the long term, and you don't get to choose. And when you don't have a choice, that's when this stuff becomes a problem. And by the time most people realize it, it's already going to be way too late, which is why this is a big deal. So,
yeah. Well, and not even looking at it from, like you talk about, it takes away from the experience. We're at a point now where it's not taking away from the experience. It's when you look at younger generations that this is how they start consuming these movies. The experience isn't there to begin with.
Yeah.
It's not even there at all.
That's true.
And so it just becomes regular. It's just standard. And I think that's another thing of why bothers us so much and bothers people like us so much is that we remember when it was an experience, when movies, even big blockbuster movies coming out, were this experience that you want to watch over and over and over again. And now you've got younger generations coming up and just consuming and consuming and consuming without really any kind of attachment to it. Not that there isn't an attachment, but it's
less
easier
of an attachment because it's so easy to acquire.
Right, and it's easier to detach from it and just go, okay, well, I like that one. When's the next one coming out?
Yeah, moving on. With all that said, let us know how you feel. What do you think about physical media? How is this affecting you? What have you noticed locally around you? Let us know. I'm genuinely interested in what people have to say about this because this is something that we are all going to be dealing with in the next 5 to 10 years, and it's going to be an issue. And if you're forward thinking enough, you're either collecting this stuff or you're making your peace with not owning the thing. And unfortunately, I think a majority of the people are making their peace with it. The
and
people
I just can't do that.
The type of person that's going to watch a podcast like this, I think, if I'm wrong, let me know. But I think by default, they're going to care more about this than somebody that would not watch a piece of content like this. So especially if you're okay with streaming services, please let us know why down in the comments, as we are very interested. We will respond as long as you're not being a jerk. We will absolutely respond and have a conversation because that is the point of this whole thing. So
Reddit was surprisingly, it was a good conversation. Reddit posts can go one way or the other real quick.
Yeah.
And so I think I think there's a lot of room here to have a conversation down in the comments.
Absolutely. So if you guys liked this, make sure you hit the like button. If you really liked it, make sure you hit the subscribe button to keep up with the stuff that we're going to be putting out in the future. We do reviews, we do podcasts, we do other stuff coming in the future as well. So, this channel has turned into something that I think can kind of be anything as long as it's about movies. And because of that, we have been having a lot of fun making this stuff lately. So
For sure.
Stick around with us. And thank you guys for watching. And we will see you guys next time on From the Deep. Bye-bye.
Ta-ta.